The story begins in the darkness inside a cave. A filthy boy thinks he can't stop this damn anxiety. Part of him longs for happiness, even though he is very weak. He's known as the luggage carrier. Suddenly, a woman approaches, saying he might be fighting with his own face and asks if he did all this. This story resembles a fairy tale. Several giant and terrifying monsters are in a cave. The healer Lawrence and the mage Heptal are fighting, and the woman says they are very fast and smart. The warrior Morgan is also fighting, using his unique active skill. Facing the large bats, he uses the infallible skill. Then the healer, seeing this, says that an infallible attack always finds its target, which is very scary. Approaching someone says it's not only Morgan who has a strong skill. This is the swordsman, the leader of the group named Leon, who wields the lightning sword. A giant frog approaches the angry hero, telling them to die, calling them slow bastards. Striking the monsters with multiple blows using the glowing blade. The guy commenting here only expected leader Leon to handle a magical beast with a single blow. All humans receive God's ability when they reach 6 years old. However, the power of this ability varies significantly. In this case, this significant difference among children represents inequality. A boy is carrying a giant backpack, saying everyone is very talented. This is the service handler, Ruck, the replenisher. Looking for rare objects, he thinks he can't join the avatars due to his weak strength, but this is the right moment to shine. A part of the monster smells terrible, so he thinks he needs to find some good materials. At this moment, someone calls him. The leader asks him to fetch water for everyone. A while later, he says he adds a lemon to help relieve fatigue and also has regular water in case someone doesn't like it. This man says the water is good but notes that he's reeking, so he asks him to continue collecting materials. In his mind, he thinks that lately, it feels like a cold air envelops everyone, as if an invisible winter has settled in these people's hearts. The Wise Eye Black Lion group, led by Leon, is currently a group of adventurers specializing in completing difficult missions. He thinks he's proud to have been with them since rank D, but also feels a bit embarrassed. He concludes that his baggage-carrying ability should be a bit stronger, and that this ability allows him to carry 10 times more baggage than others. In this world, there are concepts of weight and maximum load. Weight is the value assigned to each item's weight, while maximum load is the total weight limit a person can carry. In his case, the hero is just a convenience now, and he will strive for everyone to see him as a team member, so someone calls his attention. The girl found a super rare item, the rank level S, which is the Great Bag of the Greedy. The people praise Heptal, saying this is expected of the Great Bag of the Greedy, and it's here, as the rumors said. While reading the description, she says the bag's effect is that whoever equips it can increase their maximum load to 5,000, which leaves the hero completely shocked, thinking about the maximum load, which is 5 times more than he can currently manage. He then understands that he's inferior to that bag. Realizing this, he becomes completely nervous. In the background, someone calls his attention, saying he's doing a great job. Smiling, the hero thanks them for working so far without even flinching and states that now he's fired. The leader continues, saying that the Wise Eye Black Lion doesn't need weak people like the boy, and this is something everyone has agreed on. Ruck begins to understand what's happening and begs him to wait. He questions whether they aren't a group of companions who share all difficulties and joys together for the past 2.5 years. He says this isn't funny, and even if it's a joke, it's a bit too much. After hearing this, his leader Leon kicks the boy's leg, saying he's just a guy who only knows how to carry things. Then he hits the boy's chest with a tube, saying that, in other words, he is the group's baggage. The girl laughs, saying the luggage carrier has become the luggage, and it's very amusing. Very nervous, the boy says he's serious about the joke. He screams, begging them to take him with the group. He explains that it's true he can't even defeat goblins and has been a burden to everyone. However, he says he unloads things faster than anyone else, and everyone's maximum load is only about 100, so maybe they don't understand, but handling large baggage is difficult. He asserts that he will definitely be useful to everyone. Hearing this, Leon finds it very annoying. Trembling, the blonde just lowers his head, thinking he failed. Then the group leader tells Morden to do it, and he starts cracking his knuckles, punching the baggage handler in the stomach with a tube. The healer tells the bald one to remove the baggage first, as the boy's existence value is only in what's inside the bag. Lying on the ground, badly injured, the boy thinks this is all he is to the group and recalls Leon's words from 2 years ago. Going back in time, the protagonist asks the leader to let him carry it. The man then asks if Ruck is sure because his baggage is already full. At that moment, the boy thinks what matters is that the leader can return comfortably and says his job is to carry baggage like him. Smiling, the leader thanked him, affirming that he is an important member of the group and will be counting on him. He states that the truth of the young man is very strong and believes in him. In his mind, the protagonist understands that, thanks to the leader, he had courage and admires him, but now he has forgotten his words. Walking away, Leon repeats the phrase that sobriety is very strong. Nervous, the protagonist realizes he still remembers that phrase, and the man says he couldn't forget. Smiling menacingly and mockingly, Leon comments on the boy's happy face when he was praised and says he couldn't forget it. He reveals that he had a lot of fun too, and with just a little kindness, the boy was willing to be the group's slave. Tearing up, Ruck says this is unbelievable, realizing that from the start, they weren't really group companions. Taking the item, the healer says it's something he hid and seems valuable, so the protagonist says it's a keepsake from his mother. Leon says this item can be sold for some money, which they'll accept, and that the boy needs to use his own strength if he wants it back. Very irritated, the hero repeats again to return it. Exuding very powerful energy, he begins to stand up, repeating that word several times. The leader pretends he didn't hear anything. Meanwhile, the boy feels confused, realizing he can move with faltering power and wonders if it's the hidden baggage-carrying ability awakened by his anger. However, he thinks it doesn't matter now because he has to punish this guy, so he quickly approaches, preparing to punch. The leader prepares to dodge, thinking it's very fast, then goes for the counterattack. He delivers a solid kick to the boy's face. Falling to the ground, the boy wonders why he was kicked and that something didn't awaken. In his mind, he asserts that nothing has awakened yet and he can't even stand up. Then the leader approaches and steps on the protagonist's head. At that moment, the boy realizes it was all in his mind. While pulling his blonde hair, the leader says the boy doesn't know how to reflect on himself, and if he still doesn't know, he'll teach him. He says the boy is just a small fry and is sure of it. He comments that if the boy wants to recover that item, he needs to try and take it back so he can challenge them anytime. As the group leaves, one of them asks the leader if he won't sell it immediately. Sometime later, the boy remains in the cave, thinking something heavy is pressing him down. He then accepts that he'll be eaten by magical beasts, and this is the end. However, he realizes that magical beasts don't provoke these feelings. On the contrary, it seems he's feeling something warm, understanding there's someone on top of his body. Quickly, he sees arms flailing, then opens his eyes. He sees it's some human girl sitting in front of him. A girl who gets very nervous upon seeing him. Embarrassed, she wonders if she isn't a cushion to sit on. Desperate, she realizes there's someone there in the cave and questions why the boy is there. In her desperation, she ends up mentioning the color of her panties, which are white, but quickly corrects herself, saying she needs help. Aghast at what she just said, he calls her a pervert, asking if she's a pervert pretending to be fallen to see underwear. Tears begin to stream from the protagonist's eyes, thinking this is truly the end of his life, being rejected by a girl after being abandoned by his group mates. At that moment, she approaches him, kneels down, and shows her dango. Surprised, he asks what that monstrous thing is. She responds, saying it's her favorite dango, and although it's not a potion, it can also restore physical strength. She decides to trust the boy for now and warns that if he turns out to be a pervert, she'll be angry. She explains that with dango, once you start eating, you must finish it. Observing her, the protagonist thinks she has a cold expression, that she's a strange person. Sometime later, he starts eating. He realizes that since his body is numb, chewing will be a bit difficult. Ruck notices the girl drooling over the food, so he asks if she wants a piece, and she replies that this is how you eat with respect, affirming that anyone who doesn't take dango seriously doesn't deserve trust. The boy realizes she seems like a good person as she's giving something she loves to someone she doesn't even know. Introducing himself, he says he's Ruck, the replenisher, and asks why she's there. She says she's searching for the great bag of the greedy, which according to rumors should be on this floor. However, Nihiro comments that someone has already taken that item. Shocked, the girl asks if it's true, and says it's a shame, so she should head back. Curious, he asks what she means by heading back, noting that this is a floor where magical beasts often appear and that it's safer to stay here, where there are no monsters. The girl says she's aware, so he points out that she doesn't seem very strong in combat and assumes she got here using demon repellent potion. The demon repellent potion is heavy, and with this sector of the dungeon conquered, it would take quite some time, so he believes she doesn't have enough to return. He asserts that returning won't be as easy as it was to get here, but the mysterious woman says she knows that too. At this point, the protagonist makes it clear that if she goes now, she'll end up dying. After hearing this, she stops. Looking back as a monster approaches, she warns that she knows this. Ruck runs towards her, saying he realized she has a death wish, so he saves her. However, he gets hit by the monster directly on the shoulder. After saving her, he asks if there's anything left, then comments that he found something. He has the demon repellent potion because Leon and the others forgot to take it. After throwing it at the monster, he runs off, saying that with this, the monster will be stopped for about 10 minutes. Surprised, the girl asks why he saved her. Changing the subject, he immediately asks what her unique skill is. A bit downcast, she says she's sure the boy will be disappointed. After he insists on the matter, she starts talking about her unique skill. She explains that she's merely a talisman artisan, a skill whose only use is to create a type of talisman called omamori from magical beast materials. These talismans are items that only need to be carried in a bag to benefit from their intrinsic effectiveness. The effect of each one gradually increases things like the user's strength, magical power, or resistance. No one can carry 2 or more talismans because their effects will cancel each other out, so each person can only possess 1 talisman. Their weight is greater than their efficacy, so mid-level adventurers and above usually don't carry talismans. Noobs love talismans, but since noobs generally don't know the dangers they pose, there's a rumor that adventurers who enter the dungeon carrying a talisman will die. In other words, this is the weakest production skill, and the girl comments that her skill isn't very useful. Crying, she says that when the potion's effect wears off, all that's left is for them to die. Ruck comments that it's a weak skill and asks what that has to do with her wanting to die. Then he asks her to make the talisman as quickly as possible, but she says her talismans aren't that powerful. At this point, he asks if they aren't going to die, so why is she smiling? Sometime later, 6 pieces weighing 20 each were created that slightly increase attack power. Curious, he asks what the point is of creating so many since each person can only carry one, but the boy just thanks her. He says he'll put them all in his bag. Desperate, she warns that it's pointless because each one will cancel the other's effect. Ignoring her, the hero charges forward while she screams that his weapon is a bamboo skewer and calls him crazy. Covering her eyes, she says the effect of the demon repellent potion has worn off. Very irritated, the hero charges forward with his bamboo skewer toward the monster and hits it, piercing its mouth. Seeing this scene, she thinks it's impossible and feels embarrassed. The demon is thrown towards the wall due to the force and ends up exploding against it. Then the hero thinks this is the power of all 6 talismans combined. As he suspected, the baggage handler can carry multiple talismans at once without canceling each other's effects. He explains that while he's unsure of the details, the baggage handler has special characteristics when carrying items. In this case, the hypothesis is that he can carry them without any being nullified. His baggage-carrying ability seems capable of managing talismans separately, as if placed in different compartments, hence why the talisman effects weren't cancelled. Hearing this, the girl is surprised. Blushing, he understands that the more talismans he carries, the stronger he becomes with no limit. Getting straight to the point, he tells them to hurry up and head to the city. At this point, she introduces herself as Mio Kokono and says that apparently he must be her destiny. After hearing this, he becomes extremely confused and paralyzed. After his reaction, she covers her face, feeling completely embarrassed. She says she wishes the ground would open up and swallow her right then and there and he shouldn't misunderstand her. Nervous, Ruck says that Mayo is also quite strange, but she tells him not to call her by her first name as it would make them seem like a couple. Ruck comments that although she may appear distant and reserved, in truth she speaks in a very approachable manner and also mentions that he was happy when she said he was her destiny. Looking back, he gives her a thumbs up thanking her. A bit annoyed, she thinks she's incredibly embarrassed and wishes she could die right then. Coughing, she changes the subject, saying that from now on, they should try to return together, addressing him as Ruck. Smiling, the hero says they will definitely return and that to do so, they need to collect more materials to make more talismans. Then he takes out a knife and tells her to follow him. For quite a while, they search the cave for items to make talismans little by little. The goal was successfully achieved, and Khan knows this, and that it should be enough now. With the offensive talisman 6 times, Ruck then adds these, making it a 12 times offensive talisman. Looking at the boy, Mayo comments that he doesn't need to use the talisman outside. Embarrassed, he says the talisman must be sealed like this to be effective, and Mio comments that it's entirely his decision. The hero questions why she doesn't trust her talismans as they can be of great help, even used to recover the keepsake his mother left him. At this moment, his expression changes completely. Understanding that to do this, he needs to find a way to return safely. Several monsters surround him and look him around. Mio notices this too. She realizes that no matter how well-suited Ruck and Khan are, her talismans can't withstand such a large number of creatures. Frightened and very scared, he thinks they will die because his talisman adding ability is too weak. The girl is trembling a lot and suddenly the protagonist calls her, telling her not to worry. Placing his hand on her head, he says her talismans are the strongest and she should just watch. With this, she turns completely red. Looking at her hands, she can't believe they stopped trembling and just patted her head. Annoyed, she says patting someone's head out of the blue is disgusting and that you shouldn't do it because it feels strange, and he just laughs. Surprised, she questions why he's so confident and wonders if she misjudged him or if, suddenly, her talisman art is truly as strong as he says. Separating to fight, he throws the knife on the ground. Not understanding anything, the girl asks why he threw the knife away. Ruck responds that this is the best way for them to survive, fighting barehanded. At the same time, at Leon's location, Morgan falls to the ground and comments that he might have rushed things a bit. The leader explains that confidence is a constant in the hearts of the brave like them and that he should calm down because he's not like Ruck. However, he mentions that the guy is the one getting badly beaten by a spider, and that's not typical of him. Morgan asserts that next time he will finish it. The leader then reflects that ever since they left Ruck behind, the connections between their lineages began to fall out of sync, leading the team down a path of continuous failures. Meanwhile, in the cave, Mio is extremely nervous. Ruck thinks she shouldn't worry as her talismans are strong, and he will prove it. In shock, Maya wonders why he threw the knife away, thinking it's absolutely impossible to fight against so many magical orbs without a weapon. Yet, out of nowhere, she wonders why her heart is pounding so hard. And if it's Ruck in this situation, or if he can really do it, she questions herself. Charging forward, he lands a powerful punch directly on one of the monsters, breaking the ground. The punch causes massive destruction, and he remarks that it's better to use his fist than a knife he's not accustomed to. Mio comments on his incredible strength and suddenly notices someone approaching, suggesting he should use his sword. Quickly, the protagonist manages to defend himself from the bat attacks, though with some difficulty. Surprised, the girl realizes she's injured and that the talismans increase attack power but not defense. Looking in her mixing pot, she admits her talismans are still insufficient. Determined, she resolves to fight as well, since the hero claims her talismans are the strongest. Therefore, she must craft the strongest talismans as the boy suggested. Against her defensive instincts, she decides to protect Ruck, creating a defense talisman with 7-fold strength and weighing 20, which slightly increases defense. From the background, she shouts at the boy to grab the new talismans and throws them towards him. Smiling, he recognizes the defense talismans and thanks her. Mio comments that he had promised to prove her talismans were the strongest and warns that if he fails, she will hate him, asking if he agrees with this. Smiling while dealing with multiple monsters, the protagonist says it's perfectly fine this way. Using both attack talismans and 7 defense talismans, he acknowledges that normally each person can only carry 1 talisman, but because of his baggage-carrying ability, he can carry multiple. Moreover, even though each talisman's effect might be weak individually, when combined, their power increases. Interrupting his thoughts, a loud noise begins to emerge. He remarks that he can't see it yet, but something big is coming, and he soon spots a massive hand. Approaching, it turns out to be a giant spider. Surprised, he notes their enormous size and questions if they are the dungeon's bosses, fearing they'll be crushed if this continues. With the stone in his hand, he hurls it towards the spider using the power of 12 attack talismans, but it has no effect, and they are thrown back by a powerful screech. The spider attacks by launching webbing from its mouth towards the girl. Protecting her, Ruck steps in front. She ends up being thrown against a wall, shattering it. Falling to the ground, she realizes that without the defense talisman, she would have fallen and that the web is extremely adhesive, making it hard to remove on her own. Leo then notices that the hero's right hand is completely bound by the web. She warns him that if he uses his left hand to hold the web, he won't have a free hand, so the hero tells her to step back. He starts pulling on the web. The spider also notices something strange and begins to grin. After tugging for a moment, he asserts that, as expected, Mayo's talismans are very powerful. Using his maximum strength, he pulls the monster, spinning it and slamming it into the ceiling, completely breaking it, claiming that this is the power of Mayo's talismans. The creature is completely defeated. Impressed, Mayo acknowledges that Ruck is amazing, and that he truly defeated it. She mentions that Flaky, the dungeon boss, the spider, and earth dragon, is said to be unbeatable, even by the strongest adventurers. Changing the subject, she admits she was thinking of giving up on herself but now feels very excited. Blushing, she smiles and thanks Ruck, saying he proved the power of her talismans. The hero remains silent, prompting her to ask about his reaction. Ruck, enthusiastic, affirms that he wants to test how strong he can become by combining his power with Mio's. Meanwhile, in Leon's group, he yawns while leaning against a tree and questions if Morgan is still fighting. Heptil then asks the leader if he's not going to sell the item, and he responds that he changed his mind, stating it will be a tribute to immortalize Ruck's valuable dedication. His members start to smile, and the healer comments that he didn't expect Leon to create such a beautiful story about Ruck's death. The leader says that only in the presence of the weak can the strong shine, and asks the bald man if he agrees, commenting that he is different from Ruck, being one of the strong. Convinced, Leon asks what the big deal is, claiming it's just a small fry. He then attempts to strike Ruck with a sword blow, but Ruck manages to dodge. Looking back, he notices he's about to be attacked by a small spider that knocks him to the ground. This leaves his entire group completely shocked and worried about their leader. However, the bald man manages to defeat both, with the tornado flames completely incinerating the spider. Everyone is exhausted on the ground, and he thinks he has finally won. Then the leader asks the bald man if he got too full of himself. As he stands up, he tells Morgan that he has no confidence in his leader since they expelled Ruck. Irritated, the bald man asks if that's why he was made to fight that magical beast and got injured, and that he didn't give it his all in that fight. Leon asks if he used all of his strength because the performance was a mess, to which the healer tells him to calm down, saying it was a coincidence. Changing his demeanor, the leader admits that maybe it was a coincidence, as Lawrence said, and otherwise he couldn't explain it. Looking at his arm, he notices it's a poisonous bite and becomes alarmed. He quickly calls for the healer Lawrence, asking for an antidote. But Lawrence apologizes, saying he can't find it. The leader asks if he's planning to pretend he can't find it and let him die, but Lawrence insists he really can't find it. Annoyed, the leader says Ruck always retrieved these things with ease. He questions why Lawrence can't do the same. Flustered, the healer explains that there's too much in the bag. Frustrated, Leon tells him to use recovery magic as it should be enough. The healer becomes frightened, saying his leader doesn't remember how to use items and that it's quicker than casting magic. Very irritated, the leader asks if the healer is blaming him. In shock, Leon questions why they struggled so much against just one spider. He wonders what has changed about the group compared to before. Meanwhile, in the city there are many deaths and injuries caused by the white earth dragon spider. A man asks if Leon and the others are okay, and another responds that they are a ranked group, and so there are nights in the city filled with concern. Suddenly, someone enters the bar. The men notice it's Leon and his group. Concerned, one stands up, asking what happened. He inquires where Ruck is, and on his knees, Leon hands over a talisman. He says it's Ruck's precious pendant and that this is all he managed to recover. He claims that when the Earth Dragon spider appeared, Ruck suddenly fled, ending up being chased into an area and killed. Feeding emotion, he comments that if only he were stronger, he could have protected him. An old man places a hand on Leon's shoulder and steps closer. He mentions there are times when he doesn't know how to console someone, but there's something he needs to say. He tells Leon not to blame himself too much and to take care of the other team members, as that is both his strength and his weakness. Everyone pretends to cry and the leader thanks them. He says that the feeling of helplessness is real. Crying profusely, he apologizes to Ruck and, completing his act, declares that he will become stronger for him. A girl tells the guild master that he should also try to comfort the group. However, the guild master doesn't believe much of the story. Sometime later in a room, Leon asks how much they managed to get. Reptile says that with the adventurers' insurance money and support funds, they probably have enough to buy new weapons for everyone, which makes Leon smile. With the money in hand, they all rejoice and begin laughing maniacally. Happy, they claim that others are very naive and that finally Ruck served a purpose, as all that money was just for a baggage handler. Grinning maniacally, Leon says it's not just about the money, but also that their chances of receiving a hero's medal have increased even more. However, one of the group members asks what if Ruck is still alive. Leon asserts that there's no possibility. He comments that alone, Ruck is just a kid, incapable of anything. He claims that by now, Ruck is probably in the stomach of some magical creature out there. Meanwhile, the hero and the girl are wandering through the caves. They are out of recovery medicines and have been walking for several days, so it wouldn't be a surprise if they suddenly fainted at any moment. However, looking ahead, Ruck notices the natural daylight and realizes they finally made it out. At the cave's entrance, a man approaches, demanding they hand over all their treasures. Nervous, Ruck realizes they've encountered thieves just as they were about to leave. The leader of the thieves remarks that they seem weak at first glance and decides to investigate them. Obeying the order, a skill evaluator identifies the boy as a baggage handler and the girl as a talisman artisan. After reading their abilities, the man bursts into laughter. The three thieves mockingly declare their skills as useless. The baggage handler, they claim, is only good for menial jobs throughout his life, and for a talisman artisan, they'd rather die. Hearing all these insults, the girl begins trembling and crying. Ruck, thinking they need to rest soon, looks at the leader and asks where he's looking. Adventurers are easy targets for thieves on their way back because they're likely very tired at that point. Not to mention, they're usually carrying rare items and treasures when returning from the dungeon. Smiling, the thief orders Ruck to walk over and place the bag on the ground. However, the hero doesn't comply and instead pushes him, telling him to move out of the way. Seeing this defiance, the man is baffled and starts laughing again. Irritated, he questions if Ruck really believes he can return home safely. After all, they're just a baggage handler and a talisman artisan. The thief scoffs, mentioning how ridiculous it is for an adventurer to walk around with a dangling talisman, likely given by his mother for some adventure, as if it makes him look foolish. He claims that wearing it is like announcing he's an idiot, laughing even harder. But Ruck repeats his demand for the thief to move, which visibly annoys the man. He asks if Ruck really said that and remarks on how stupid he must be not to understand the situation. Drawing his sword, he uses his unique sword-hardening skill, boasting that he'll focus everything into this single strike. The sword moves swiftly, as the thief warns about what happens to foolish adventurers who don't understand the difference in power. However, with just one hand, Ruck grabs the sword's blade, completely stopping it. Realizing his attack failed, the thief is in shock, understanding that Ruck blocked the sword with his bare hand. Nervous, he questions how Ruck managed to do that, as the skill should be capable of cutting through steel. Confused, he demands to know what Ruck just did. With a deadly gaze and a completely different aura, the protagonist repeats for him to get out of the way. Overcome with fear, the large thief collapses to the ground and Ruck warns him to leave immediately. One of the bandits exclaims that this is impossible. Meanwhile, the item evaluator starts checking the contents of Ruck's bag. Another thief wonders if Ruck might have a rank as body enhancement item and asks where it is, intending to steal it with his theft skill. However, upon using the evaluation skill, he only finds attack talismans. Additionally, he finds defense talismans, both of which are rank E. Shocked, he asks why there are only talismans and where the rare item is, questioning if the talisman effects are cumulative. Suddenly, the old thief starts considering a hypothesis about the cumulative effect. Then, with a murderous aura, Ruck asks if they found what they were looking for. Terrified, the thieves begin fleeing, shouting for someone to save them. Looking back, smiling, the protagonist tells Mio that they can return safely now. However, the leader grabs her by the arm, declaring that even with his terrible power, Ruck cannot exist like this. Holding a knife to Mio, he warns the baggage handler not to move or take even a step, threatening the girl's life. But suddenly, Ruck vanishes, reappearing behind the bandit leader. Looking back in surprise, Mio wonders how he got there. Nervous, Ruck states that Mio's new task is to make a third agility talisman, and that they are fortunate to have them. The bandit realizes he can't win and won't be able to defeat Ruck at all. Changing his approach, he places his hands on the ground, bowing his head, and begs for forgiveness. Seeing this act of pleading, Ruck is surprised. He says he should forgive him, but it's too late to ask for forgiveness now, though he admits he would really like to forgive him. However, there's a problem. Ruck states that he has already broken the men's wrists. As they walk away, Ruck asks Mio if she's hurt, and she simply replies, "Thank you." Taking her hand, he says it's dangerous, so they shouldn't get separated. Blushing and very embarrassed, she says she'll try. Looking up, the protagonist remarks that he thought he'd never see this again. In this case, he's referring to the sunlight he hasn't seen in over 10 days, and the sunlight the pair now witness is dazzling. Meanwhile, a man thanks the members of the Wise Eye Black Lion group for accepting the palace mission again. He explains that their task today is to protect the city wall while it's being repaired and to be ready for a surprise monster attack. The leader whispers to his team that if they can showcase their strength to these people, it will lead them to the next level. Noticing someone's absence, a guard asks where the young man with the backpack is. Responding, the leader says that he couldn't keep up and left the group, leading the man to think he's very weak. After hearing this, the guard asks everyone to wait a moment. 20 minutes pass, and the guard announces that these people will also be assigned to the escort duty. Leon asks how many people are coming and remarks that with this, they won't really be able to showcase their strength. Just then, a swarm disappears and they must prepare for interception. Excited, the leader mentions that they're always hunting these monsters and calls the healer's attention, instructing him to act. Lawrence activates his unique ability, the Serpent's Eye, which paralyzes the target for a few seconds. With the knights paralyzed, the leader moves towards the monster, saying that they should leave it to him as these creatures are the group's prey. Meanwhile, elsewhere at night, Maya states that she truly believes in Ruck and has decided to stay by his side. However, she notices that the room only has one bed and mentions she's not mentally prepared for this. But the protagonist explains that it was a mistake. He's shocked because he's never failed at booking a room before and thought it was fully reserved, and now it's too late to find another. In the midst of this, Mio suggests they get drunk on steak and salmon and perhaps come up with a great idea. Nervously, Ruck realizes it's an attempt to come up with another idea, and that Mayo is the kind of person who puts problems aside. Sometime later, Ruck mentions it's his first time in bar catering to Oriental people, and Mio comments that she hopes the steak suits his taste. Raising a toast, she says it's a cup to celebrate their return. As they eat, she mentions that dango dumplings pair well with steak. Observing Ruck, she realizes she doesn't know much about him and would like to use this opportunity to talk. After taking a sip, she asks why Mayo went to the dungeons alone, saying he's curious about it. Putting her drink down, she responds that since it's Ruck Khan, she can talk. She explains that her father is being persecuted. In her home country, just because someone's skills are weak, they face intense harassment. They'd vandalize their home, place dead animals around, and even burn the family's warehouse, saying people with weak skills shouldn't be allowed near others. They believe the next generation's skills would be even weaker. However, this is based on an old superstition, vague and only partially correct. It's said that skills are hereditary. Skills are blessings from the gods, and it's not just a matter of admiration. People want their children to have the best skills possible, which led to the persecution. Looking downcast, Mio says that both she and her father have the same talisman artisan skill, and her father apologized for this many times. She comments that she was so filled with sadness that she wanted to console her father, telling him not to worry. The talisman artisan is stronger nowadays. Thus, Mio began her journey to prove the strength of her talisman art, hoping that if people use her talismans for a while, they would recognize the skill. She explains that her father saved money to help her escape and that she found work in a country where there's little discrimination against skills. This way, she managed to open a stall selling talismans on her days off. Mayo was ridiculed almost daily, but somehow endured it all, because there was one person who even gave her a small amount of money. However, one day, everything changed. Noticing the presence of a guard pointing at her stall, she wondered if something had happened. The man approached, showing her a talisman, asking if it looked familiar, and requested she come with him for a minute. He mentions that they couldn't find anyone to easily identify the body, then asks if she knows him. In shock, Mayo realizes that this man once came to her shop. Looking back, she understands that she didn't let him die, but never imagined this would happen. Sometime later, she overhears a conversation about the rumors of the Great Bag of the Greedy. During the conversation, the man mentions that it's a legendary bag that strengthens all the items you possess. At the time, she had no other options and unbelievably decided to explore the dungeon alone but didn't find what she was looking for. Looking at the protagonist, she says that even so, she's glad she went because she met him. Hearing this story, Ruck is shocked. Continuing to drink, she admits she said too much. Noticing that Mio drank a lot, he offers to take her home, and she jokingly says she might be drunk. Smiling widely, she admits it's a lie and that she's not drunk. On their way home, Ruck decides to carry her piggyback. However, he feels her chest pressing against his back. She praises him for it, and he acknowledges that, as a baggage handler, it's his duty not to damage his cargo. Sometime later, he finally returns to the inn and places her on the bed. Realizing it's not a good idea to share the same bed, he considers spending the night elsewhere, but she calls out to him. Awake and very embarrassed, she asks him not to leave her alone tonight, fearing that when the sun rises, the night sky might take Ruck far away. Hugging him, she says it's been only a few days since they met, yet it feels like a beautiful dream. Hearing this, he is speechless. Crying, Mayo comments that just because happy things happened, she doesn't want to wake up. Determined, Ruck tells her that they will travel together and prove once and for all the strength of her talisman-making skills. Surprised, she asks if he'll really help her achieve her dream, and he remarks that he didn't become an adventurer with a grand purpose. He admits he just wanted to be useful to someone. He then declares that they'll see how far they can go, him as a baggage handler and her as a talisman artisan. He asserts that he will become stronger than anyone else. Meanwhile, a woman is training alone. She comments that even if she could cut through the speed of sound, she wouldn't be able to reach them, wondering what she can do about it. Despite being the strongest knight of the current era, a girl approaches, calling out to Alicia and Samae, questioning why she always leaves her behind. However, she notices that Alicia is drenched in monster blood and naked. In shock, she asks why Alicia is bathing in monster blood, and Alicia invites her in, pulling her forcefully into the pool of blood. Crying, the younger girl declares she's tired of being Alicia and Samae's companion. This is Alicia Avon Farman, the strongest knight, who says that when they feel the dead enemies with their flesh, they can become even stronger. Meanwhile, Leon is on his knees, questioning who he is. One of the knights complains about who summoned the dead and useless people. Leon wonders what's going on and mentions that he wasn't feeling well and normally it would have been an easy victory. Staring at the knight, he questions if he really doesn't know what he's doing, calling him a poor man. He declares that they were abandoned by that young man. The leader asks what he means and doesn't understand who he's talking about. However, he quickly realizes it's about Ruck. Confused, he wonders what that guy did to his group. Elsewhere, Mayo asks about Ruck's skill evaluation center. Ruck explains that it's the quickest and shortest way to demonstrate the strength of the talisman artisan and succeed as an adventurer. He elaborates on obtaining the Adventure Guild's permission and mentions they need a common skill evaluation certificate confirming their strength. Excited, the hero notes that Ruck is a famous specialist and wants to check how they're doing. Sometime later, they stand in front of a tent. Maya remarks that this is Ruck's skill evaluation office and expresses hope for good results. Entering the place, Ruck asks for permission. A witch-like woman invites them in, saying please. Ruck is shocked to find a child, while Mio speculates that she might be the shop's vendor. Approaching, Ruck asks if she can call Holt Sam, and the girl responds that she is Holt, leaving him in shock because she's just a child. Irritated, she says that she only looks like this, but is actually 25 years old. This surprises both of them, including Mayo, who comments that he thought she was about 10 years old. Excited, the witch asks if they are her clients and requests to evaluate both of them. She suggests they start with the one wearing the perverted kimono. The protagonist is quite shocked by this, thinking he was the only one with such thoughts. At this, the witch tells the girl to take it off now, which startles Mio, who asks what she is doing. Without the kimono, Mio feels very embarrassed, stating that her evaluation is very serious but questioning what is going on. The witch asks if she is in love with that boy and says that if everything is fine, she will consider it. Placing her hand on Mio's back, a magic circle forms, marking the grand evaluation. The letters rise to the ceiling, and the witch draws them directly onto a sheet. Analyzing it, she states that Mio's skill is as a talisman craftsman and notes 2 new skills, which surprises her. These are Mass Production and Talisman Craftsman Level 2. Mass Production is an S-level skill for creating multiple talismans, while Talisman Craftsman Level 2 allows her to craft other talismans. Confused, Mayo asks why, since despite pushing herself to work hard until now, none of her skills improved. The witch comments that perhaps she has been making the wrong kind of effort. She confidently adds that being a talisman craftsman is not just about creating talismans, but also relates to the user's strength. Realizing something, the protagonist calls out to the girl. Embarrassed, she calls the hero's name, but the witch interrupts, saying it's now the turn of the boy with the turtle shell. Smiling, she remarks that despite his appearance, he has a beautiful back and can expect good results. The protagonist asks if there is any connection between his back and the test results. Sometime later, he inquires about the evaluation results. Removing her glasses, the woman says he will face difficulties. His unique abilities include carrying as much weight as he can, being a porter. It's a skill that allows him to carry a lot of things and is useful, but really only for various tasks. Suddenly, she announces that he has gained 2 new skills, surprising him. However, she warns him not to have high expectations, as what appeared is just a common skill. The first is Porter Level 2, meaning the amount of luggage you can carry will triple. She also mentions that the other skill is of the same type. Upon speaking, the skill simply leaves him in shock. Apologizing, he admits he was a bit surprised and reveals that the skill is the Turtle Beast, which developed quickly. He says it's a really weak skill, where the more things he carries, the stronger his allies become, functioning as a support skill. However, even if he carries the maximum amount of baggage, it's hard to feel the effects immediately. These skills are too subtle to be truly useful. Nonetheless, she notes that being a porter means he can carry 30 times more luggage than a normal person. Thus, the effect of the Turtle Beast skill is 30 times stronger than that of an average person. In other words, anyone who forms a group with him becomes stronger than they would normally be. She concludes that the skill seems to have appeared about 2 years ago. At that moment, the hero comments that 2 years ago, he was covered in equipment, making the challenges inexplicably stronger. Fallen to the ground, the lion comments that they are S-rank veterans and are losing badly to these trash monsters. In shock, he says it has been a tough fight since the Dragon Arena cave and wonders what's happening. He questions if they've been cursed to become weaker, but that seems impossible since no one noticed anything. He also doesn't understand the words of that guard about abandoning the boy long ago. He states that he was just living a normal adventure with his friends. Suddenly, he realizes that someone must be holding a grudge. This realization excites him to the point where he looks like he's about to explode. Looking up, he smiles wickedly. His companions don't understand what's happening and call out to their leader. The man asks if they want to continue being humiliated like this, which confuses them. He explains that this is not how the Black Lion's wise eye truly is. Then he comments that he has figured out who their enemy is. Lions are the absolute kings of the jungle who hunt any prey without letting their guard down. Smiling, he says it's the same for their group. Upon seeing this, the healer questions his leader about who he is planning to hunt. Meanwhile, Ruck and Mayo are at the Adventurers Guild to register a new group. The woman with the glasses arrives, saying she reviewed their skill evaluation certificates and fortunately, they can't form a group now. She kindly asks them to give up on that idea. Slumped at the bar, he laments that having just a porter and a craftsman isn't enough if they can't defeat monsters. He wonders if he should invite a frontline attacker to join or become a knight's vanguard himself. Maya responds that it seems it took a month to obtain the title of Knight Apprentice. With arms crossed, the protagonist remarks that if only someone could properly evaluate their skills, it would be the fastest way. Arriving at the location, someone asks if the members are having trouble forming a group. This man approaches Mio and grabs her hair. He comments to the young lady that her hair qualifies her, and that compared to staying with that useless guy, joining his group would be better for her. The hero stands up, declaring that this girl is his friend. Quickly, the arrogant man punches him in the face. He is thrown into the tables, breaking them. A long-haired man says the weak man is worthless, and that he can make her happier than she thinks. The people recognize him as Ren Kongo, an A-class adventurer known for being a womanizer. Suddenly, he opens his eyes, revealing the serpent eyes. Paralyzed, Maya realizes something is wrong with her body. Someone comments that this is Ren Kongo's unique ability, which makes a person unable to move for a few seconds. Approaching the girl, the young man tells her she is more beautiful when she doesn't move. He says she might not like it at first, but she'll soon get used to his beauty. Everyone gets irritated, saying he's about to kiss her, and that it's a terrible idea. Pouting, the knight declares that with this kiss, her human life is about to become much more colorful. But quickly the hero arrives, grabbing his face and filled with rage, throws him away. Once again, more tables break, scaring the waitress for the second time. Surprised, the man asks where he got that kind of power. He also questions how he managed to close the distance so quickly and recover so fast. Ruckan states that the man himself said the weak have no value, and that, being so, the knight is even more disgusting and worthless than he is. So arrogant that he fails to see he's just a porter. Elsewhere, a woman is working out. She is doing pull-ups and has already reached 1,308. Her companion calls out, informing her they defeated the dragon and asks if she can stop training so they can return to the guild. Desperate, she explains that at this rate she will die. She begs her to look at her body, trembling like a newborn's. Finishing her workout, Alicia wonders if there is a worthy opponent to fight her to the death, someone truly strong. Injured, Ren Kongu reflects that it makes sense since he is an A-class adventurer. And even so, he can't believe he's getting beaten by someone who's just a porter. Irritated, he charges forward, announcing that he will kill him. Nervous, the hero realizes the state of a sword that can no longer cause problems for the guild, so they need to leave to minimize the damage. However, he notices something strange because he can't move. This is the Serpent Eye's ability being used on him. He understands this is his unique skill and things won't end well. Approaching with the sword, the man declares that now he's just prey and should give up. Intervening, Mayo uses a defense talisman, making the man's sword go limp and ricochet. It bends so much that its tip points towards the man's face. Seeing this, the boy comments on the talisman's effect and apologizes for ruining his sword. Bowing, he says it's his fault for not controlling it and assures he will compensate him. Seeing this, the man runs away in a panic, shouting that he's dealing with a monster. Using the speed talisman, the two approach, telling him to wait and that they will compensate him. Nevertheless, he ends up leaving and the boy comments that he didn't even listen when he was talking. Looking at his sword, he is surprised that he simply threw it away, but Mayo understands exactly why he did it. Even though he hadn't done anything wrong, he felt guilty. Meanwhile, Alicia approaches the two in her knight's attire, asking to borrow the sword for a moment. The boy quickly asks for it back, but looking up, he realizes the woman is enormous. Confused, he questions what she is doing. In just a few seconds, Alicia manages to restore the sword to normal with her hands. She says that for a knight, having a broken weapon is like facing death itself. He thanks her but only realizes she is not only strong, but also tall. Observing her, he understands that this strength isn't normal and that the dragon's fangs seem to be spoils of war. As she bids farewell, he realizes she is likely a veteran warrior. Sensing an opportunity, he calls out to her again. Approaching her, he asks if she could provide him with sword training. Mio, witnessing this, is shocked and questions what he is doing. But he realizes that in the recent battle, he would have died without Mio's talismans, so he says he wants to become stronger. However, the woman swiftly attacks, breaking the ground with a single blow. The boy, lying on the ground, is frightened, and she says she wants to know how strong he really is. Crying and worrying, the little one apologizes and asks why Alicia did that again. Sweating, Alicia explains that the force she applied to the boy is equivalent to that of 3 horse-drawn carriages. She tells him he can stand up now, qualifying him to train with her. Her companion says he will die as only people like Alicia and Sama can withstand such force. Surprisingly, the hero manages to stand, wondering if this is enough. Both Mayo and Alicia's companion are astonished. Questioning who he really is, Ruck then asks Alicia if this is correct. Smiling and dripping with sweat, he asks if she will truly train him. Confused, the woman asks why he is smiling and if this wasn't interesting. Explaining, he says he laughed because of the heavy burden, and that producing such weight would require physical skills and the ability to maintain a strong center of gravity. He realizes he is fortunate to be trained by her. Hearing this response, the knight asks if he isn't afraid. Embarrassed, he admits he was scared of suddenly taking such a strong blow, but he realized he could become even stronger, and the excitement was even better. Trembling, the girl asks if he is also a masochist and somewhat surprised, says she doesn't think so. But on second thought, she recalls him laughing the other day. Holding her axe, the giant woman tells him to lift his sword and take a stance. She wants to see if he can become an opponent she could fight to the death, and she will ensure it now. She says that if he can kill her, that would be great, but for now, deciding to go all out, she quickly attacks, but he manages to block using the sword. Even using the defense talisman, it ends up breaking. Due to her immense strength, he is thrown far away, breaking a wall. Desperate, the girl asks what they should do, and Mio comments that since she is his master, she should come up with something. The boy is launched with a single blow. Regaining his balance, he realizes he needs a firm stance. However, he cannot defend himself at all. Observing his opponent, he concludes she is a monster or something similar. Breaking through the wall towards the lake, he is certain of it. Preparing to counterattack, he knows that learning from her will make him even stronger. Charging forward, he throws the sword using the pressure talisman and the attack talisman, but she manages to deflect it. Now using the speed talisman, in less than a second, he jumps high. Heading towards the woman, he grabs the sword by the hilt and pulls it down forcefully, breaking her axe. Confident, he remarks that for a knight, having their weapon broken is like facing death itself. Surprised, the woman says she has finally found someone she can fight to the death with and wonders if she is dreaming. She pinches her cheek so hard it starts to bleed and realizes it's not a dream. Surprised, the boy comments that she pulled very hard, and then her companion calls her by name. Alicia runs towards Kinon, her friend, declaring she has finally found her soulmate. Confused, Ruck doesn't understand anything and asks what's going on, urging them to explain. Introducing herself, the small one says she is a knight serving a farm and family, and her name is Kivan. She adds that for some reason, Alicia was looking for a strong and resilient knight to fight with her to the death. Moreover, she states that he might be the only one capable of achieving such a feat. In summary, she explains that it seems Alicia Asamasa has fallen in love with him. This information leaves both the protagonist and Mio completely shocked, as it's a case of love at first sight. Sometime later, they are inside a carriage. A bit uncomfortable, the boy asks if she could repeat that. Smiling, Alicia explains that she was looking for someone to fight to the death with. Pointing passionately at the hero, she says he is strong and can become even stronger. Therefore, because of that, he is now her husband. Confused, the hero thinks he can't understand her words at all and asks her to explain again. Intervening, the small one tells him to let the maid Kimon speak her name. Then she asks the knight to lower her weapon and notes that he seems to have been caught off guard. On one of Alicia Asama's Tohohoho gaze, which is an expression that basically means unfortunately. Hearing this term, the two don't quite understand what she means. Ken explains that Alicia has grand plans to train Ruck and make him an exceptional knight. Thus, she's creating her own rival, though she is caught in a dilemma. The dilemma is between her battle-hungry heart and her loving heart. Nervously, the boy asks what she means by that. Kyun says that the moment he completely destroyed Alicia Asama's weapon, these thoughts must have crossed her mind. That he will spend the rest of his life fighting her, from the wedding ceremony to a day at the beach and even in old age. Hearing all of this, the boy starts sweating nervously. Trembling, he asks if he can refuse, and Kyun remarks if he really thinks he can escape from Alicia. She concludes that if he believes that, he shouldn't be here now. Mio then says this is very concerning. The maid notices that he's sweating like a pig and also broke Alicia Asama's terrifying weapon. She soon realizes that he seems to have a monstrous side. Mio then thinks he's involved in a troubling situation and decides to help him, calling out to Alicia Asama. Hugging the boy, she says that in fact she and he are already dating. This leaves the boy completely nervous. Mio says that's why Alicia can't marry him, and looking at the boy, asks if the name is correct, calling him dear. He doesn't understand anything, while the girl keeps insisting he respond correctly. The protagonist ends up pushing her out of the carriage and apologizes. Kyeon then asks if the two lovers were traveling together, and he confirms it, Seeing this, Alicia is surprised. With a shadowy aura, she approaches the two lovebirds. The boy senses murderous intent, but quickly, Alicia steps aside and takes Mayo's hands, saying they are in the same situation, leaving her confused. She explains that both of them are lovers of her husband, and thus they will be good friends, which leaves both the maid and the protagonist very confused. Sometime later, the carriage arrives at their destination. It's a gigantic castle. This is the domain of the prestigious knight family of the kingdom, the Farman family. Surprised, he understands this is the Farman family and asks if they hire apprentice knights and train them until they become excellent knights. The small one explains that Lady Alicia is the eldest daughter of the current head of state, Lily Cabra, and thus she will be the next head of the family. The lovebirds realize this means she's a noble lady. Introducing herself, the giant says her name is Alicia von Farman. Calling her husband, she says she wants him to train here, as she has other personal matters to attend to and won't be able to train him personally. Looking ahead, the girl realizes this place houses real knights. Smiling, she tells him to fight them to the death, grow stronger, and surprise her. Inside the castle, he asks if they are all knight apprentices. The woman explains that he can achieve this in less than a month and that this is the best place in the world to become a knight. Determined, the boy thinks he won't marry Alicia, but he will set aside the marriage conversation for now as he aims to become strong in this place. Kion then asks why Mayo only wants to become a knight apprentice, but the protagonist clarifies that it's actually him who wants to become one. Not believing it, the girl tells Ruck that the strength of a knight of the sacred class is the highest level, asking if he's been wielding a sword since childhood. Smiling, he replies no, that he's had the sword for less than a month, prompting Leo to explain that's why Ruck was a beginner or vanguard at the Esno Adventurers Guild. He adds that it was indeed to earn the knight title so he could join a group, leaving Kion surprised that he's become so strong in less than a month. Showing them a room, she says they can use it during training, which impresses them. The woman asks if he would like to greet the Lord, and the boy says he will certainly thank him for such consideration. Seated on the throne, the king mentions that his daughter Alicia told him everything about the boy being her fiancé. He remarks that for 21 years she only enjoyed engaging in battles, but now it seems she's planning to marry someone. Nervous, the boy insists the king is mistaken, explaining that he's here to learn swordsmanship and that the engagement is just a story Alicia is making up. Irritated, one of the women asks if he broke her sister's sword. She says a weapon is the spirit of a brave warrior, and breaking it during a battle is akin to a love confession. Not understanding anything, he asks if this situation is his fault. Rushing at him, the woman questions how he dared confess to her sister. Angry, she calls him incredibly stupid. Suddenly, they disappear from his sight. In an instant, she's just a centimeter away from him, aiming for a fatal strike. However, he uses the speed talisman to dodge. Then he asks her to wait a minute, questioning what she's doing. But paying no attention to his words, she vanishes again. Aiming her sword at him, she introduces herself as Chloe von Farman. Staring at the tip of the sword, the protagonist thinks he can't believe all the sisters in this bloodthirsty and doesn't know how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, the lion's group is in the forest. The healer asks if someone is feeling envious, and the leader replies affirmatively, noting there's always someone around. He mentions they strengthen the demons and hinder them, calling them envious bastards. If it weren't for that, they wouldn't have any trouble with those monsters. The bloodthirsty guard vows to ensure they catch those envious bastards soon. The group then agrees to capture them. However, the healer starts to wonder about the matter. He thinks it might be a magical beast and doubts if any kind of magical strengthening is applied to them. Since neither he nor the reptilian sense anything, he questions if this magic really exists. Walking through the forest, he feels increasingly uneasy. He wonders why his leader Leon has such a proud and triumphant expression. After this event, the group's trusted companions begin to distance themselves. Introducing herself, Chloe declares that she will be her sister's deaf companion. She questions how he dared to claim her sister's hand, but the boy insists he's not her husband. Not wanting to hear it, irritated, she tells him to just duel her, calling him a porter and saying they'll settle the score with a single blow right here and now. If she wins, the boy must immediately stay away from her sister, but if he wins, their marriage will receive full blessing. Nervously, he asks if these conditions are truly fair. She then yells, saying the daughter of Farman tells them to celebrate with all their might and that they can hire a top-tier chef or cook, or else she could cook for him herself. However, he thinks she doesn't know how to cook and that there's literally no reason for them to give up the knight apprentice title. Suddenly, Alicia appears, telling her husband to accept the challenge. Irritated, Chloe notes that he didn't deny being called her husband and asks if she has finally won the duel. The giant then declares that her husband and sister are excellent opponents for her to kill. Not understanding anything, the boy asks if they really are opponents to kill. From a very high window, she comments that if both focus and train hard, they'll surely become stronger. She announces that the fight will take place in a month and a half and wants to see them both entirely focused on each other during the deadly combat. She then announces that her colleague Kyun will be the one to train her husband. Chloe thinks the time is too long, but Alicia insists it's only half a month and that it's decided. In a sort of coliseum, the maid bows, stating that by Alicia's order, she will begin his training today and introduces herself as Kyun, the night maid. She tells the boy that she hopes he enjoys the training and is genuinely happy from the bottom of her heart, to which he thanks her. Relieved, she says that thanks to this, she no longer has to follow Alicia around for now, as winning life-threatening battles every day is significant. However, she mentions that for a month and a half she only needs to train him, which makes her completely happy. Suddenly, Alicia arrives, declaring it's time for a fight to the death, leaving the maid nervously shadowed. Stammering, Kyoan says she still has to train Ruck-sama. Confused, Alicia asks what she's talking about and declares she will do both. Seeing this, the maid is in complete shock and ends up being dragged out of the Colosseum. Mayo asks how he will train now, and he replies that it's better to start swinging the sword while they wait. Night is falling and they're still in the Colosseum training. The girl comments that it's already nighttime and it seems they're done for the day. However, Kyoan suddenly yells that she's here to train them. She appears completely battered, with a fish on her head and blood on her face. Apologizing for making him wait, she asks if they can start now. Mayo is in shock, as Kyoan's unique ability is instant teleportation, and she comments that's why she managed to appear out of nowhere. Kyoan explains that her ability's name is something she doesn't quite understand, but it's safe to say it's roughly equivalent to instant movement. She reveals that they were just fighting deep in the sea together. Trying to be helpful, Mayo offers Kyoan some dango, noting it's been a tough day for her. Crying, Kyoan comments that Mayo is truly an angel. Mayo ends up comforting Kyoan for several hours, a result of her terrible days with Alicia. The boy notices that Mayo is good at taking care of people and Kyoan eventually recovers. Changing the subject, Kyoan with a blushing face asks Mia to share more about her love story. Desperate, the girl says that's all, and there's not much to tell. Watching from a distance, the boy realizes Mayo and Kyoan are getting along well, but regarding his training, he's unsure when it will begin. Moving to a more mature topic, the maid asks if they've done that, and laughing, the girl says not yet. Kyoan seems deeply interested in their romantic stories and has bought into the fake relationship. The protagonist then wonders if Kyoan can really wield a sword, thinking she might be only one bullied by Alicia. After soaking up enough romance, Kyoan declares it's time for training and tells him he can attack first. Nervous, the boy realizes his time has come and notices he left his bag aside, so he wants to see how far he can go with his swordsmanship alone. Ruck charges, attempting a sword strike, but the maid swiftly blocks it. The maid comments that he's not yet accustomed to the sword and needs to put more strength into it. She notices he's losing quickly, attributing it to his experience as a porter and having observed the technical training of the swordsman in the group. Stepping back, Ruck understands she's praising him, but beyond that, she's effortlessly blocking his attacks with just one hand. She remarks that having always served Alicia, it's clear she couldn't be weak. If that's the case, he considers himself very lucky. Attacking again, the maid blocks once more. Smiling, she says he's been quite smooth as well with a good teacher, and thinks she won't need to use her other hand for a few days. Primarily, the maid notes that most of his power is the result of the multiplication effects of talismans, or so she's heard. Kyoan doesn't understand how someone who has never wielded a sword could stand firm against Alicia and believes that with proper swordsmanship training, she could finally create a monster. Thus began the days of intense training. The protagonist learned both hand-to-hand combat and theory. Learning the basic principles of cavalry combat, he's getting stronger. As the days of rigorous training progress, he wonders if his mind can defeat Chloe in a sword fight. Because her blade is so fast, he can't see anything even using Mayo's talismans. He understands that this fight will be decided by a single precise strike, and he questions once again if he can really win. Kyoan notices the doubts swirling in the protagonist's mind and comments that he must be wondering if he can win. With her eyes closed, she tells him she'll be honest. She states that, at this very moment, he cannot defeat Chloe. Surprised, he wonders if he can't win even with Mayo's talismans. The maid explains that the combination of the talismans is indeed powerful. However, she mentions that there is a significant weakness in their combination. Hearing this, both of them are completely perplexed, having never considered such a thing. Meanwhile, in the forest, the Lion's group leader asks what the definition of a hero is. He wonders if they think it means the savior of the world or perhaps the one who defeated the Demon King. He asserts it's neither of these. A hero of a generation is someone who stands above all and is remembered by everyone. Saving the world and defeating the Demon King are merely parts of this entire process. Jealousy, admiration, contempt, hatred, envy, faith, love. There's more than just that. A hero has the strongest control over the emotions of the heart and soul of everyone in their generation. Excited, he affirms that's what a hero does. Confused, the healer asks why they're talking about this. The leader responds that for someone magically enhancing monsters, it's because they're standing out. He declares it's time to expose this trash. Suddenly, he shows a bag and says it's filled with carrots. With the smell of carrots, they'll attract those creatures, certain they'll come their way. Sometime later, several weak monsters appear. The leader tells them to use these weak monsters to see if the range of the strengthening magic reaches this area. He explains that they'll only attract weak monsters to see if the surrounding area is affected by the magic, as this is the safest way to assess the risk. He states that if it's the same as before, they can easily eliminate these useless beings. Jumping at the monsters, he prepares to attack, saying they are insignificant and will serve as test subjects. As he strikes, he calls them trash. However, he notices something strange and starts feeling extremely nervous about the situation. The apparently weak monster easily blocks the leader's attack. The reptilian is shocked, saying his attacks can't even cut through the horn and that these monsters also have strengthening magic. The man wonders if they've reached such strong magic that he must defeat this trash somehow. Determined, he uses his Thunderblade ability. Charging forward, he questions if this will be enough to kill it. With resolve, he declares that this won't happen because he is the hero. At the same time, the hero is training and asks Kyun what their weakness is. She responds by explaining that no matter how many talismans they have, there's a weakness that can't be entirely eliminated. However, she says she'll observe him in action before explaining and asks him to activate his talismans and use the real sword. Confused, he asks if she really wants that, and she confirms. She tells him he can feel free to attack anywhere. Thinking he might have an advantage, he decides to charge, wondering what his weakness might be. He opts to use the speed talisman for his first frontal attack, but he quickly falls to the ground, not understanding what happened. He's utterly confused and extremely surprised. The maid then apologizes for it. With a mocking smile, she says she was just kidding. Watching the protagonist, she explains that she transported half of his blade, and after that, she managed to cut his bag. The woman warns that everything he carries on his back can be destroyed, and that's exactly the weakness of both of them. Miss Chloe is capable of doing the same thing with much more speed and precision. Neo then comments that Ruck must protect his bag while fighting. The maid says that his weaknesses can't be overcome just by training with her, and that he must fight other knights to gain battle experience, which is the best option. Determined, she declares that starting tomorrow, they'll fight against the top 10 knights. One day passes, and in the Colosseum, a man asks if launching an avatar against the knights won't have any effect, while another wonders who it will be against. Upon spotting the man, he asks who he is, saying he looks weak, while the other asks why he's wearing a backpack like a talisman. Nervously, the protagonist wonders if he really needs to fight in front of everyone, while humbly wishing him good luck. The servant announces that the 10 knights are the most notable knights recognized by the Farman family and assures they will be good opponents. She explains that the helmet is designed to block skill assessments, specially made to prevent any evaluation, keeping abilities hidden. When fighting them, they should impose some restrictions on the boy. She specifies that he must have 15 talismans in his possession, 5 for attack, 5 for defense, 3 for speed, and 2 for accurate targeting. A knight calls out to the boy, asking if he's one of the Farmans and warns him that he's one of the top 10 knights. He mentions being forced to fight a rookie with a talisman, which he considers utterly disrespectful. Approaching, he introduces himself as Gilman, a 10th chosen knight, and warns he will finish this in one strike. Excited, he tells him to finish it quickly, but the hero uses the speed talisman, dodging the attack. The man remarks how fast he is, wondering if his unique skill is speed, making him exceptionally agile. He explains that speed will increase his movement but weaken his attack power for a while. Using the hardening ability, he taunts that the hero won't land a single blow on him, asserting that he can't do anything in this state. However, the hero swiftly approaches, delivering a precise blow to the man's chest, completely shattering his hardening ability in seconds. Dismayed, the man can't comprehend what's happening, as he has fought many speed ability users, but this is the first to break his hardening. Shattered and crumbling, he falls to the ground, already defeated. Everyone is shocked by this display of strength, speculating if his ability is speed, while another questions what the boy's unique skill truly is. Impressed, Mabel comments that Rutkan is indeed growing stronger. Seeing his opponent on the ground, the hero contemplates whether to add another attack skill, given this opponent's unique defense specialization. Meanwhile, the Lion's group is also on the offensive. Sometime later, he finally managed to kill the monster, struggling against a mere rabbit. Reflecting, he thinks he could have easily taken down all those rabbits. Frustrated, he exclaims that this is utterly impossible. Irritated, he grabs a bag of carrots and throws it toward his subordinates. Upon noticing this, the man attempts to awaken something within himself, sensing a scent the rabbits are drawn to. The bag lands in front of the two subordinates, and their leader quickly dashes into the forest, leaving the two nervously agitated. They question where their leader is going. Terrified, the man wonders what he is doing and if he's really fleeing. In his desperation, he trips over a tree branch and falls to the ground. Looking back, fear grips him, so he presses on, telling himself to keep going. He realizes he wants to defeat the scum using monster enhancement. This way, he won't need to run away. Suddenly, he notices two adventurers near the forest. Smiling, he thinks it must be them, convinced they are the ones strengthening the monsters. The woman notices his presence and asks if he is alright. She offers to cast a healing spell immediately, but her companion remarks that something seems off about him. Looking back, the woman acknowledges they can't ignore him as the leader approaches with a sword, striking a fatal blow to his chest without giving him a chance to defend. Both the woman and her companion are in complete shock. Smiling mercilessly, the man declares that they made him suffer for a long time. Finally, he says he has overcome them. After taking the hit, the woman starts to stagger, questioning what she has done. Within moments, she collapses to the ground as the man stares at her. Her companion charges at him, demanding to know what he has done, calling her a fool. Leah then questions why he is so angry. Introducing himself as an S-rank adventurer, he says his name is Leon. But with intense rage, his opponent delivers a final malevolent strike directly to Leon's chest. Elsewhere at the Colosseum, people recognize that Ruck is unbeatable and wonder who the next challenger will be. Chloe, watching, feels irritated but says she didn't expect much from the man her Winnie-sama brought home. This is Alicia's younger sister, Chloe von Farman. Observing, he thinks that someday he will fight her and won't be recognized as a knight until he defeats her. No matter how many enchanted talismans he has, Chloe will end him immediately if she strikes his pouch. He recalls what the servant said. He needs to accumulate battle experience. One of the men on the ground is defeated and can't believe it. But then someone appears, saying he was defeated by an outsider, bringing shame to the 10 chosen knights. Suddenly, multiple shadows approach him. They wrap around him as if they were something solid. The individual introduces himself as Gannett, the 9th among the chosen. In the name of the Farman Knights, he declares he will kill him. The crowd becomes excited upon seeing Gannett, the shadow puppet master, whose unique skill will surely make that guy lose. Surprised, Mio notices she's dividing the shadow, using it as a weapon, meaning she can easily launch a stealth attack. For Rek and Sun, their pouch is everything, and this will be a tough opponent in this match. Thinking deeply, the boy questions how he'll handle this with his 15 talismans. Attacks will come from both the ground and the front, dividing his attention. He decides to lower his posture, believing that with a lower vantage point, he can protect against both attacks simultaneously. Slightly crouched, he prepares to defend himself. Everyone is shocked, not understanding what's happening, and someone even comments he looks like a thief. Seeing this, Chloe remarks it's unpleasant. Without hesitation, the woman uses the shadow skill against the hero. In her mind, Chloe finds no difference from the last time, noticing how quickly he's shining, which she finds completely unpleasant and disgusting. The 9th knight advances on the hero, who manages to defend against her shadows, attacking directly, dodging swiftly, and attempting a counterattack from behind. However, the woman defends herself as well, quickly using her shadows. She attempts a counter, but the hero dodges again. Another shadow comes his way, but he manages to break it in half. The woman realizes her opponent has a good field of vision and will have to change her strategy. Suddenly, she notices him throwing something. She realizes it's his sword coming towards her face. He states it would be costly to fight her any longer, finding it truly irritating. The sword's tip strikes her neck hard. With that, the single blow to her head brings her down, and it's announced that the challenger with the backpack has emerged victorious. Everyone is stunned that he defeated Gannett's son, acknowledging that the knight with the backpack is undoubtedly a monster. He celebrates, stating he defeated the 9th-ranked knight and can surely beat Chloe's son. Rising, the woman claims it was merely a coincidence, and if she were ranked 8th, she could easily defeat him. Kimbera, Chloe, and Samak were watching everything. She comments that even the 8th and 7th ranks won't be able to beat this guy, and if he can't perceive the difference in strength, the Farman Knights are incompetent. She insists that this simulated avatar was just an inspiration for everyone, and honestly, today, like him, she pushed herself to the limit to improve. One of the men remarks they allowed the outsider to be pure and extremely aligned with the Farman family. He then speaks about Chloe von Farman, claiming she can defeat anyone who dares oppose her. Another man states the pride of Farman wouldn't allow things to continue like this. Zoe asserts that this is precisely the spirit of the Farmans and praises it highly. She says they should not bow to authority but believe in their own justice and act accordingly, which is the Farman teaching. Mio thinks she believed Chloe was an accepting person, but it seems she is loved by everyone. Bothered, the woman states that the only thing that can rid her of these thoughts is their battle. She then tells the boy he must challenge her, asking if he'd like a real fight with her. Recovered, she questions if everything is alright, commenting that the blade of her sword is quite eager. The protagonist fully understands this is a great opportunity to fight Chloe. As she descends from the stand, she says that only a training match or duel will be held at a later date. Smiling, she wishes him good training. Analyzing the situation, the boy understands that Chloe's strength lies in her speed, and the only way to deal with such attacks is to trust his intuition. Then, the man strikes the gong to start the fight. In mere seconds, the woman flies toward the protagonist, completely smashing his pouch of talismans. He stood frozen by how fast it was. Seeing this, Maya wonders if Ruck has already lost. Chloe then declares that Ruck the baggage carrier is too weak, but as she slowly looks at the sword, she notices it as cracked. Watching the blade crack, she recalls her sister's words, saying that a knight's soul is their blade and breaking it is akin to death. Remembering that moment between sisters, she becomes completely enraged and starts pulling the blade until it finally breaks, while the protagonist stands with his back to her. The girl is panting heavily. From the stand, someone comments that something hit the lunchbox perhaps too fast to see. The protagonist thinks about his role as a savior, considering both aspects, but even so, his pouch was destroyed. He reflects that his pouch would indeed be hit first, so the woman ran to the left, and although she hit him, all it did was make her strike his sword. Observing, he realizes that Chloe moves at an insane speed, farming at a breakneck pace. The entire stands erupt, chanting her name as she reflects on being a knight and how breaking the sword is the same as death. Meanwhile, inside a prison, a man sits alone in a cell, chained. This is Leon Hasenberg, the former leader. Ultimately, he became a criminal and is now captured. Later that night, one of the men asks if he heard about a guy who defeated all the chosen knights and reached the 6th rank. He mentions that everyone was watching, and his colleague asks if it was the Zero Knight, a guy known for carrying a backpack whose abilities remain unknown. Some say he is stronger than the first knight, highly respectable. Others wonder who gave him that nickname. He must be incredibly powerful and also possesses an amazing ability. He remarks that he wishes he had been born like that too. After intense training, the hero is exhausted, his hands raw and chafed. He recalls Chloe's speed, unable to get that swift attack out of his head. Yesterday's match was deemed a draw, if that's as good as a loss to him. Bibi appears, telling the boy that he's working too hard. Ruck assures her he's fine and just taking a break. The boy then says he has something to give Ruck, recognizing his recent hard work. He notices the new talisman, Prayer for Disease Rank D, weighing 20, with a mild effect of reducing sensitivity to illnesses and relieving symptoms. Bibi explains she made it for his health, but adds that if he doesn't need it, he can return it. Smiling, the boy assures her he definitely needs it, then pats her head affectionately. He remarks that talismans are the best for him, and now he won't need to recover anymore. Holding his hand, she notes that the demon of hard work has appeared, remarking on how rough his hands have become from practice. He declares he's taking the day off, and she advises him to rest well and enjoy a relaxing bath. Later, he finds the bathhouse closed, realizing he might have arrived too late. Then he remembers Kyun mentioning that, as a guest, he's welcome to use the guest bathhouse. Deciding to take the opportunity, he enters. Surprised, he finds the spacious, luxurious place empty, allowing him to enjoy it alone. Entering the thermal water, he feels completely content, but then someone calls out to him. With arms crossed, a woman stands, irritated by his presence. Looking up, he sees it's Chloe. The woman, in complete shock, says she has just decided to kill him, but it will depend on his response. However, changing the subject, she asks Ruck how his vision is. He responds that it's not very clear, blurred by water droplets. Mixed with the skin tone, he describes it as a hint of light pink. Holding her sword in the bath, the woman says she'll wait. Questioning whether his vision isn't incredible, she leaves him flustered, but he just nods. Without hesitation, the woman lunges, attempting a full-body sword strike, but he dodges. Para tells him not to run, calling him an idiot. Chloe in for his heart, but he managed to evade. The woman adapted to his attack pattern. Her combat vision and growth are remarkable. Under the water, the hero realizes this place should be for guests, and it's odd for Chloe to be here. Surprised, he wonders why she was attacking. Then the king arrives at Ruck, noting that among all the bathhouses on the farm and estate, the guest bathhouse is always the best. Startled, Chloe looks back, noticing her father has arrived, prompting the protagonist to submerge again. The man reminds him he had suggested using the bath in the castle, but his daughter argues she thought it was fine since guests no longer use this place. Sighing, he mentions she shouldn't have, as someone could decide to come here today, and that today is the male guest day, and she should focus on the female guest days. Still underwater, Ruck realizes that if discovered, it will be bad, but he can't hold his breath any longer. Looking to the side, he notices he's very close to the princess. Whispering, she tells him to hide behind her and take a breath. Embarrassed, she apologizes, saying it's her fault and that he should just wait for her father to leave. Her father, however, sees this as a good opportunity for a private father-daughter chat. The man enters the water to talk while the hero remains hidden. He praises her daily efforts in swordsmanship, to which she responds with gratitude. However, the old man asserts that the harder she tries, the greater her despair will be. Turning his back on his daughter, he tells Chloe she won't be a good knight and should stop wasting her efforts. Hearing this, the boy wonders how Chloe's father could say she won't be a good knight. Anxiously, she responds that she is aware and that the reason for honing her sword skills is solely to protect the Farman family's reputation. Nervously, she admits that with her unique ability, it's not about being a good knight, something she's known since she was 6 years old. The king then acknowledges her resolve, saying he will leave the bath first. After the conversation, the girl feels uneasy, saying her acting was great and her father left quickly. However, Ruck points out she was also acting, asking what's going on and questioning the story. Later, Chloe is at the castle. Sensing a presence, she says he's here, calling him an idiot. Curious, the protagonist asks her to explain what happened and why her father said she couldn't become a knight. She counters with another question, asking if he was happy or sad the first time he left home. Confused, he responds that he doesn't remember since it was a long time ago. Smiling, she says she would feel very happy. She explains that despite being a knight, she has never left the Farman family grounds. With a sorrowful smile, she comments that this is her life and will remain so until the end. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, a guard informs Leon Hasenberg that he is released. Hearing this, the prisoner is baffled. Smiling, the prisoner asks if they finally understood he did nothing wrong, blaming a woman who used a strengthening spell. However, the guard corrects him, saying his father paid for his release and calling him an ungrateful brat. After this explanation, the guard hands Leon a letter from his father. The letter expresses his father's deep disappointment in his behavior, stating that the Hasenberg family's reputation has been ruined. Leon simply stares at the letter, somewhat confused. The letter continues, stating that fortunately, other nobles are unaware of his crime, and before the public learns of his family's disgrace, you will be freed. However, from now on, he is no longer his son, and must never set foot in his house or use the Hazenberg name again. However, the letter states that if he raises his head and admits his mistakes, he will be given one last chance, urging him to think carefully and reflect on his actions to regain trust. After reading this, the man becomes furious and crushes the letter. Smiling, he feels happy because he can finally continue his journey with him. He runs off, thanking his father. He thinks he must go to his friends who are waiting for him and will return as a hero. His face looks like that of an innocent child thrilled to receive a toy. In his mind, he believes his friends are at the usual adventurers guild waiting for him. Back to the protagonist, she continues saying she's never stepped outside the farming lands and that her life will remain this way until the end. Confused, he asks why. She explains that outside this territory, the air is slightly contaminated by the threat emitted by various monsters. Her body simply can't handle it. The boy admits he never noticed the pollution, and Chloe clarifies that for someone normal like him, it's negligible. She then asks if it's funny, as she once vowed to become stronger alongside her sister and was even drawing something like that. Now, however, she can only laminate with him. This is an illustrated book she created with her sister. The story depicts the sisters becoming stronger knights, a very important book to her. Recalling the past, her sister asks Chloe what she's drawing in the middle of the night. Then, noticing it's their story, she realizes it's about them. The Farman family sisters are the strongest in the world. Her older sister, Alicia, is the strongest, and her younger sister, Chloe, is second. Excited, she talks about how, when she turns 6, her father will give her permission to leave and gain unique abilities. Soon, they can make this story a reality together. Her sister praises her, calling her a bright girl. Chloe joyfully talks about traveling the world together, and Alicia comments that they will be the strongest sisters. On the day she was to receive her unique ability, she had high expectations. However, from that day on, she began feeling unwell and had to recover quickly because they promised to become the strongest sisters. She thinks she can train forever within this territory without exhausting her health. But the moment she leaves the farming lands, it becomes different, as she can't stop coughing. Meanwhile, her sister Alicia's performance has always been remarkable and surprising. This gap between them as nights kept growing. Breathless, Chloe asks her sister Alicia to wait for her. However, Alicia never stopped for her, meeting new knights every day on her journeys. In the end, her sister found someone to share her life with, and it wasn't her. Tearing up the book, she says they made a promise, and such a fantasy was just a pathetic excuse. She concludes, saying this is why her father told her she could never become a knight. Looking up at the sky, she notices something approaching. Seeing it's a shooting star, she says if she could be reborn, she would wish for that. Despite everything, she declares she won't give up. Looking at the hero, she says she will definitely defeat him in their next duel, and she will never yield to people like those who distracted her sister. With a determined gaze, she declares she wants to face him with all her strength and will hate him for the rest of her life, never losing on purpose. She says her title as a knight will be on the line, so she asks him once again not to take the luxury of losing. The boy comments that he's happy because he never thought he would be able to face a strong knight like her. It's something he could never have imagined when he was a baggage carrier, and she told him to give it his all in the fight. Smiling, he reveals he's never felt so honored and also wants to fight her with all his strength this time. Chloe then smiles back at the hero, calling him a pervert for feeling like a warrior even at a time like this. She remarks that this is how Winnie-sama fell in love with him. The next day at the Battle Coliseum, the 10th chosen knight, Gilman, and the 9th chosen knight, Garnet, watch the fight. Garnet comments to the man that not only the 5th place, but also the 2nd and 4th places are all there. It seems the Zero Knight is going to face them all at once. The man then questions if he is mocking the chosen knights. Angry, the crowd calls Zero trash, and Mio notices everyone is upset with Ruck, wondering what he did this time. They continue cursing the hero in their minds, and he apologizes for the inconvenience, but says this is more practical. He comments that if he can't defeat them this way, there's no chance against Chloe's speed. Today's talisman setup focuses on agility, with 1 recovery prayer piece, 1 attack prayer, and 1 speed prayer. To deal with Chloe, he needs to rely on speed talismans. He's also using Mayo's Mu talisman. With the gong struck, they signal the fight to begin. The hero swiftly jumps, landing multiple blows on several knights at once. With his agility, he manages to strike several simultaneously, and one of them thinks he can't regain his speed. The 3rd knight, Minoris, and the 2nd knight, Platana, prepare to fight. Both use the unique expansion ability together. Heading toward their spears, the hero dodges and delivers a powerful frontal attack. One of the knights falls with the spear hitting the ground, and grabbing his lance, the hero prepares to finish him. From 5th to 2nd place, all were defeated in an instant, leaving them questioning what's happening. Happy, Mayo remarks that he's mastered the agility prayer, and another comments that the next opponent is the 1st knight, but they both mention they've never seen this knight before. With arms crossed, Garnet states it's obvious because the 1st knight is none other than the mage Alicia-sama. Seeing this, the hero is stunned, and suddenly a maid appears, introducing herself. She curtsies in her maid's dress before the boy. Both he and Mayo are shocked that she's the 1st knight. Smiling, the woman says that although she's restrained, she alone will be his opponent. While all this unfolds, the brave Leon walks through the city. Suddenly, he stops in front of a door. Panting, he recalls being told to meet at the Adventurers Guild if anything happened. But someone inside says he dared show his face there. With arms crossed, they declare it's no longer his place. This is the guild master, and Leon argues that he's an S-class, but the master retorts that he's no longer one. He explains that Leon's group has been downgraded to C-class and he's indefinitely suspended. The man continues, calling it a disgrace. Angry, Leon tells him to stop lying, insisting he only stabbed one person. Fuming, he argues that he's always been praised and has completed many difficult missions, elevating the guild's name. Quickly, the burly man grabs him by the shirt. Irritated, he asks if that's why Leon felt entitled to hurt others. Seeing the murderous glare, Leon becomes extremely nervous and fearful. Throwing him to the ground, the master states it's true he completed some tough missions, but it wasn't him who carried the weight. That credit goes to Ruck, who was by his side the whole time. Lying on the ground, Leon starts sweating profusely, wondering what's going on. The leader questions if he still doesn't realize. Leon had been missiled, as Ruck was the one leveling up their abilities. Inside the Colosseum, Mia was shocked that the mage is ranked first among the top 10 knights. Initially, the hero wonders what kind of fight she'll use, recognizing her weak point only through practice. Determined, he decides to prove himself, now equipped with 15 talismans, 1 for recovery, 2 for attack, and 12 for speed. Raising her hand, the mage states that before the match begins, she wants to make something clear. According to Farman's rules, leaving the stadium doesn't count as a loss. Other knights agree as long as it's not to escape the fight, but simply not to leave the Farman territory. She mentions that they can leave the stadium. Taking his position, the boy questions what she's planning, uncertain about her next move. At that moment, the gong sounds. Charging forward, he asserts that without understanding her intentions, he'll have to strike first. She quickly conjures a portal and steps into it. Seeing this, Ruck is surprised and halts. He stands alone before the portal, as the mage has vanished. Everyone wonders where the first knight went, noting she's nowhere in the stadium. Backing off, the hero leans against the wall. Observing the portal from a distance, he deduces she's not in the area and is merely provoking him. She's basically daring him to follow if he has the courage. He admits he doesn't know where the portal might lead. Nevertheless, if staying here gets him nowhere, he decides to run straight toward the portal. The crowd then claims that Zero has also disappeared. The man is transported into a pit and is falling. Looking down, he sees it's a trap filled with swords. Driving a sword into the wall, he manages to stop his fall just in time. Kyun apologizes but says that if she loses this fight, Listen Sama will increase her training fivefold. However, if she wins, she'll get full hours of rest, 8 whole hours to relax. Preparing her attack, she mentions that this would allow her to visit those remote hot springs and even get a massage. The attack reaches his helm, and he realizes it's water magic, but it's not hot. The maid explains that it's bath water. He thinks about how he doesn't have a defense prayer today, and all he can do is endure the pressure of the water. But to his surprise, multiple swords emerge from the water, heading toward him. She is in the bathhouse, throwing numerous swords into the water. Since it's a kind of whirlpool, the swords travel through the portal and are flung at the protagonist. She admits it's not a praiseworthy tactic, but she can't win honorably, so it's all for the sake of her vacation. Frustrated, she declares that even if it means discarding her knightly pride, she'll claim her deserved break. Declaring victory to Ruck, she vows to secure her holiday. Observing everything, the hero notes that there are many swords, but compared to Clo's sword skills, they are all too slow. With a powerful attack, he sends all the water shooting out of the pit. The swords then begin to fall, and he climbs out. Emerging from the pit, he realizes he's still in the stadium, but can't pinpoint his opponent's location. Looking at the pit, he notices the water is still flowing and wonders what kind of bathhouse could have so much water. Suddenly, he deduces that the guest bathhouse must be the place and Kim might be there. He thinks he shouldn't have gone through that portal, but it could also be a trap. Decided, he prepares to rush there. Using his speed talisman, he dashes swiftly, surprising a knight strolling nearby. Relieved, the maid murmurs to herself that she doesn't see Ruck coming and thinks she might have won. However, she suddenly hears many footsteps. Looking back, she wonders if it's Alicia Sama, but it must be someone else. They are coming from a far distance and approaching quickly. With a sword in hand, the girl cries as she prepares to defend herself. Ruck arrives, attacking with a murderous aura, prompting the maid to consider targeting his pouch if it comes to that. He swiftly disarms her in midair. Crying, she tells him he needs to learn to calmly assess his situation and become stronger than ever. As the man raises his sword to finish her, she simply smiles, saying he did a good job. She mentions it's okay, but mutters about her beloved hot spring, her massage, and laments that life is an endless turmoil of suffering, now ending for her. He promises to tell Alicia to give her a break, but Kyun insists there's no chance of that, as that tough, muscular lady wouldn't grant a vacation. Later, Alicia comments that Kyun lost and still wants a vacation. Denying her request, she calls it a waste to lose and says it's the perfect opportunity to grow, prompting the hero to think she's quite harsh and cruel. Arguing, he says it's precisely because she lost that she needs time to reflect. Internally, he thinks she really should be allowed some time for herself. Alicia remarks that she doesn't understand, but her husband insists she takes a break once every 100 days. Both are extremely surprised and Kyun starts to tear up. Crying profusely, she holds the hero's hand, thanking him deeply for her entire life. He reassures her, saying it's okay, and that he must return to the arena now. Still watching the fight, the crowd notices the two have returned. She raises a white flag, and the first chosen knight also raises a white flag, signifying victory for Knight Zero. Happy, Miyu exclaims that he also defeated Kyun, and it's incredible, not knowing what kind of battle this would be. Kula realizes that Kyun's able to push Oni-sama into a poisonous swamp and strike her. This truth became known as she had served as her sister's attendant since then. However, the hero ended up defeating her, undoubtedly showing his growth. Soon, she realizes there are 2 days left until her fight, and in those 2 days, she must become stronger once again. Alone, Klo is training in a secluded area. She wonders what she should do to adapt to the constantly changing fighting style of that boy. Suddenly, she starts coughing, questioning what that smell is. Realizing something, she drops her sword. She falls to her knees, sweating heavily and tearing up. As she continues coughing, she understands that this is a suffocating odor. Wondering why this smell is present in Farman's territory, several giant monsters approach. Looking to the side, she sees that it's a level 100 stench attack. Completely terrified and in shock, she realizes it's a swarm of monsters. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.